What's going on, guys? Nate here, and today I'd like to discuss Assassin's Creed Origins, one of the games that surprised me at E3 2017. It looks like Ubisoft is really aiming to revive the franchise with this installment, and so far, they've at least captured the community's interest. So today I'd like to show off a few important details that you may have missed, so without further ado, let's do further. To start off with a time period in particular, we know Origins is set in Egypt, however it's not exactly ancient Egypt as most of us were led to believe. According to lead developer Assassisn, this game actually starts off in 49 BC, so this is actually more or less the classical period, the Ptolemaic period if you will. For a little bit of context, the pyramids were being built in the very early 2600s BC, and the famous pharaoh Tutmosis reigned in 1493 BC, so this game takes place considerably later than our expectations guided us to believe. Ashop stated that they considered going back further, during the time period the pyramids were first being constructed, but by then, Egypt was more or less just a collection of villages, with very few actual notable locations and cities. But Egypt in 49 BC is one that is far more expanded, populated, and bustling, with great cities such as Alexandria, Luxor, and Memphis. Simply put, there's a lot more to do during this time period of Egypt's history than anything earlier. So now that the time is out of the way, what exactly is going on during this pyramid? Well, quite a lot actually. Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XIII, who was a child mind you, were actually engaged in a civil war for control of Egypt in 51 BC. Now the Romans were also engaged within their own civil war, as Julius Caesar and General Pompey were jockeying for power. Eventually Julius Caesar won and declared himself dictator, and Pompey fled to Egypt, where Cleopatra's 13-year-old rival brother Ptolemy XIII, in hopes to score an alliance with Caesar, had Pompey executed. But that backfired quite miserably, and this actually angered Caesar, and during a visit to Egypt he had later, he met and had an affair with Cleopatra. Caesar, now the sole dictator of Rome, decided to ally with her instead, and after a series of battles with Ptolemy's forces that ended in disaster for the child, Cleopatra was installed as pharaoh by Caesar. Ptolemy went on to go drown in a river somewhere, and all was well for about 45 minutes in Egypt, until Julius Caesar was assassinated by the Republican Senate on March 15th, 44 BC, and Rome descended into yet another civil war, this time between Caesar's arguably favorite general, Mark Antony, and Caesar's adopted son and biological nephew, Octavian. Cleopatra decided to cast her hat in with Antony, who she also had another affair with. She does this a lot if you look into her. And to dramatically oversimplify for time constraint reasons, Cleopatra and Antony lost, quite decisively. On the brink of capture, the two committed suicide in 30 BC, and Octavian's Rome annexed Egypt, and for the next 500-ish years, Egypt would remain a Roman territory. Now that is quite a lot of history for Assassin's Creed Origins to pick from, and with a start in 49 BC, we will begin as Cleopatra's conflict with her brother is in full swing, but just months before the assassination of Pompey. We know AC games tend to span years at a time, and I doubt Ubisoft will want to miss out on telling this amazing story. So it very well may continue up until the suicide of Cleopatra and Antony. As for your enemies, in the gameplay we've seen the protagonist kill various Roman soldiers, suggesting Caesar and by association Cleopatra are representing the Templars, as your player attempts to establish the Brotherhood. Even if this game chooses to avoid documenting all the way up to Cleopatra's suicide, there's still a lot going on between 49 BC and just the next 5 years alone. During this time period, Rome completely steamrolled Egypt. There was a massive battle for the Nile in 47 BC, and Roman soldiers pretty much occupied the entire area, so everything seems to be adding up here. Next, something else you may have missed is the map size, and my god, if you have not seen it yet, it is huge. Much of the map on screen is covered in a bit of an unexplored fog, but we can still gather a decent outline, and it looks pretty huge. It includes the entirety of Cleopatra's Egypt and then some. Lately, Ubisoft has been going big with map sizes. Ghost Recon Wildlands and Assassin's Creed Syndicate both had enormous playable areas, and they seem to be bound to continue that trend with Assassin's Creed Origins Egypt, a massive open world. And lastly, there will be multiple playable characters. Ashraf Ismail confirmed that while the story will center around Bayek, the lead protagonist, he did also mention that playing as other characters is something the game will demand in certain portions. It didn't seem as though he was alluding to the modern day Abstergo sequences either. Just take a listen.
This is primarily Bayek's story. We do have other playable characters that are played in select quests, but that's as far as we're going with today. Okay. We don't want to, there's some surprises in there, we don't want to ruin them. There are other playable characters in the story, but it is primarily Bayek's story.
But with that, we are going to wrap up. I'm personally very excited about Origins. I haven't bought an Assassin's Creed game since Assassin's Creed 3, and I was very disappointed when they left behind the whole Renaissance period and exploring areas like Constantinople and Renaissance Italy. So going back even further than that really excites me. After their 2-year break, Ubisoft is definitely bringing a lot of new to the Assassin's Creed franchise, which is desperately needed in my opinion, and I hope it all works out well. Assassin's Creed Origins is a game I'm very hyped for and will release on October 18th, 2017. There's some stuff I didn't cover in this video, but we'll get to that later. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, a like rating is always very much appreciated, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.